Brooks Center, a pack of poets, the daughters of Gwendolyn Brooks, which is presented by the Guild Library Complex, and friends and family. Sit back and enjoy.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Brooks Permissions is honored to welcome you to GB105, the anniversary celebration of Gwendolyn Brooks' birth, June 7, 1917, 105 years ago. Today, we will see birthday gifts to Gwen from A Sweet Idea, which is presented by Chicago State University, from the Gwendolyn Brooks Center, A Pack of Poets, The Daughters of Gwendolyn, presented by Guild Library Complex, Literary Complex, and friends and family.
Hi. We're excited you. We've got so much stuff planned. We'll be talking to you about that all throughout the day. My name is Nora Brooks Blakely. Thank you, Cynthia Walls. Cynthia Walls is the Vice President of Brooks Permission. And hanging around our Madman Tech Manager, Darius Colquitt, you'll be seeing also throughout the day. So we wanted to start the day off with a poem from Gwendolyn Brooks. And one of her most popular newer poems is Speak to the Young, Speak to the Progress Toward. Say to them, say to the down keepers, the sun clappers, the self-sorters, the harmony hunters. Even if you are not ready for day, it cannot always be night. You will be right, for that is the hard home run. Live not for battles won. Live not for the end of the song. Live in the along.
We are so excited, folks. So excited to be able to to celebrate this amazing, outstanding, illustrious individual. We're grateful to be able to bring you some of the most amazing artists and poets and individuals, family members and friends from across the nation, and also to introduce you to some really great takes when it comes to Gwendolyn Brooks. For example, last year we did this amazing feature featuring some outstanding artists from around the nation talking about why Black representation matters. And let's face it, when it comes to Black representation, Gwendolyn Brooks is the center of that thought. So we want to share those thoughts with you. Take a look.
I think representation is important because it is about where we are now and who we are now. But legacy is important to our community because it is how we see ourselves in reference to the past, what we bring forward from the past.
For me, growing up, being able to see people who looked like me, who sounded like me on things like television, on the internet, really influenced me. It hit me hard. It taught me that we can be something more.
Now, some of us see it, but there are a lot of us who don't. And that is why this is important. That is why Black history, Black poetry, Black writing, Black artistry, that's why it is all so important.
Just on a personal note, when I was younger, I didn't see people who looked like me. What I mean is, when I would read a book, I wouldn't see little Black kids in the book. There wouldn't be children with hair like mine, or a wide nose like mine, or a shape like me. it wasn't really anything that I felt I could relate to.
As someone who's Native American, I know the stories of my family, and I know how proud it makes me feel knowing where I've come from. The Black community deserves that same representation.
The ancestors set our path for us. Their energy goes forward into us today. We may not know who they were or where they came from exactly, or what they went through, but their energy has created us, and their legacy is with us still, and I believe that their love guides us every day.
Representation and legacy are essential within the Black community, especially because on a day-to-day, many of us don't get to experience it. We don't get to feel valued. We don't even know our own history half the time because it's told only through a white lens and is often downplayed and misconstrued. So it's important for us to celebrate Black excellence and those who came before us.
Things like that can affect your self-esteem and how you think about yourself. Not just in, do I like myself or not, but even in the goals that you set for yourself. If you haven't seen someone, for instance, be the president at the time, being a Black president isn't something that you're going to think that you can be if you don't see someone, or if you don't see that represented in that way.
Preserving and sharing these important works by Black authors and thinkers and creators is important for lifting up Black joy and supporting Black grief. And when it's shared with the rest of the world, it becomes a beautiful, precious bridge between the personal and universal.
What I think is most important in the Black community is representation. If we see that we can be anything, we will be everything. We can be superheroes, police officers,
doctors, lawyers, volunteers, giving back to the community, and just lifting each other up. Because a lot of us, we're used to seeing ourselves as thugs on TV. Thug number one, thug number two, suspect one, suspect two.
We are so much more than thugs. We are so much more than criminals. We are so much more than just workers. We are so much more. We need to be able to see people that look like us doing better things than what the media makes us out to be, because we are so much more than that.
As far as legacy, tying that on to that, if we don't do that, who will? In history books, it was shown that we were, our start was from slaves. But if we don't teach our children, or even people now who may be ignorant to the fact, if we don't put out there that we came from kings and queens, then they'll believe that that's really what we are, and that's all that we are. So it's important to change the thought process, to change how we view ourselves, and hopefully it will become the norm for the next generation. They'll just know who they are, if that makes sense.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, everybody. It is 10 o'clock right on the button because you can probably hear the air raid siren that goes off on 10 o'clock on some days. Apologies for that, but welcome to the A Sweet Idea with Nicole Bond. You are in the Brooks Bake and Cakery, so to speak. And we are going to do two things. So I'm going to be very mindful of our time. We are here until 11:15, where we will, there we go, where we will bake Miss Gwendolyn Brooks's famously delicious orange cake recipe. So for those of you who are joining and intend to bake with me, I hope I have some of you out there who procured all of your ingredients and are planning to bake. First thing you want to do right now is stop what you're doing and go preheat your oven. So you should preheat that oven to 375 because when you put the cake in, you need it to be already ready to go. So thank you, Darius. The amazing and wonderfully talented tech person Darius is behind the stage with the graphics, and he just showed us that orange cake recipe. Sure, you please share that again. These are the ingredients that you should have if you are planning to bake with us. They are 2 cups of sifted cake flour, 1¼ teaspoon of baking soda. That's soda, the one in the box, not the one in the can. 1 teaspoon of salt, 2/3 cup of butter, which comes out to be like a whole stick of butter and maybe a little bit more than a little bit less than half of another stick. Then you are going to also add 1½ teaspoons of grated lemon rind and 1 tablespoon of grated orange rind. We're going to do 3 eggs, 2 tablespoons of orange juice, 5 tablespoons of vinegar, and ½ cup of milk. So those are all of the ingredients that you should have ready if you intend to bake with us. If you want to do it another day, that's great too. But this cake is super, super delicious. Second thing we're going to do while the cake is baking is have a little bit of a writing prompt. So I'm going to give you something to think about while we're preparing. What I chose for us to do today was inspired by flipping through some of Miss Brooks's poems in the anthology Blacks. I have it right here. And I pulled out 5, because this is the 105th birthday. I pulled out 5 lines or titles from random poems in this anthology that have food references. And your mission, if you choose to accept it during the writing portion of our day, will be to craft a poem of at least 10 lines using all 5 of the lines or stanzas that are food references from poems in this anthology. And I'll give those to you a little later. Just wanted to get you thinking about what we're going to do later. But without further ado, we are going to make this cake. And I have a confession to make. It's just us, right? So I can tell you a secret. So the plan, and Nora knows this because we kind of talked about it and we thought it would be a good thing for, video production quality. I was going to fake bake this cake. So I was going to, like hold up all the ingredients. Here's the orange juice. Here's the eggs. Here's the sifted flour. And then put it in the oven. Let the time pass while we did our writing prompt, right? And then turn out this wonderful cake that I had pre-made. But as they say, what had happened was, I'll show you. So I made what was going to be the fake bake cake on Sunday. And this is all that is left. It is delicious. This cake is easy to make. I hope you will try it. If you're not baking along with me now, please make this cake. It's delicious. So I didn't think it would go over well if I put a whole cake in the pan, but only a half a cake came out of the oven. So I really want to make another one, and we're going to get started doing that right now. So as the recipe says, I have this amazing handwritten recipe that I procured from the archives at the Rare Books and Manuscript Library at U of I Urbana-Champaign. And this is one of my prized possessions now. This is Miss Brooks's orange cake recipe in Miss Brooks's handwriting. Happy birthday, Miss Brooks. So the very first step is we are going to beat the butter, sugar, and fruit rinds until fluffy. So in this bowl, I've got my butter. I'm going to put in my sugar. Da-da-da. And the fruit rinds, which are the orange rind and the lemon rind. I'm wondering if you are out there and you are baking with me, can you put that in the chat? I'd love to see how many people are out there really baking along today. That'd be cool. So we've got those in there. Then we're going to get our trusty mixer and start blending. While that's mixing, I don't know if you can hear both me and the mixer, but if you can hear me, I'm jumping in to tell you that anybody who's out there who really, really knows me, like if any of my peeps or posse showed up, you know I'm a pretty good cook, but you also know I'm like a mediocre baker. Baking and cooking are very different things. Baking is science and math. If something tells you to put in 2/3 of a cup of something, that's exactly what it means. Cooking is more like if you're making a sauce or a pasta dish or roasting a leg of lamb, or you can kind of walk into the kitchen and smell, this needs more salt, or it's almost done, but it needs a few more minutes, or I forgot to put in something. You can kind of just tell by the way things look or by the way they smell. Baking, not so much. It is all science and math, and it wants you to do exactly what it's asking you to do. So this is going to go for a few more seconds because the instruction is to beat until fluffy. And it smells very good. And here's the time when I want to kind of just stick my finger in and take a pinch, but I will not. I will not do that. All right. So the next thing it wants us to do is to beat in eggs separately. It says separately. And that's another reason why maybe I'm not the best. I'm a better cook than I am a baker, because baking, I promise you, it is a science. If it tells you to beat in the eggs separately, that's exactly what it means. It means you want to put them in one at a time and let that one beat and then put the next one in and so on and so forth. So I'm going to do that. I'm also going to share just a little tip that I remember my grandmother doing when I would watch her bake when I was a shorty. She was an amazing baker. And whenever she used eggs to bake, she would take them out early in the morning and let them sit and get room temperature. Something about putting cold things into things that are going to go into a hot oven. It's just all a part of that process that people who really don't want to like take the time or have the patience to do those things and follow those steps to the letter, that's kind of what makes them be not the best baker. Let's see. Oh, Words and Wings says she's not baking today, but she is going to make this cake. I promise you, this cake, you saw what I showed you. I baked the cake Sunday. It's just me. I've eaten a half of a cake since Sunday. But anywho, on to the eggs. So I'm going to crack one egg. And what she would also do, if something called for more than one egg, she would put them in separately. She would crack the egg, kind of look at it and see, is this the egg I want? And then put it in. Because, I mean, eggshells aren't clear. You can't really see what's in there until you crack it. And if you crack it and it's not quite right, you've already put that into your mixture. So you want to crack them one at a time and put them in separately, just as the recipe instructs. So I'm adding my first one. I don't know if there's a way to let you see this, but it's happening. That one's thoroughly mixed. We're going to go with egg number 2. No shells. I don't have any, but I learned a cool thing. Someone who is a really great baker told me if you ever crack an egg and you get a little piece of shell in there and it's like you have the dickens of a time trying to fish it out, another piece of eggshell will actually fish that piece out that you dropped in. So you're welcome. Egg number 2. And egg number 3. Oh, I think I did it that time. See, I jinxed myself. There is a little piece of shell in there, but I got her out. If you're following along, can you tell me what we do next? Let's see. So we beat in the egg separately. We are going to mix the orange juice, the vinegar, and the milk. Orange juice. Vinegar. And here's where baking, again, it becomes exact and you have to do what it says, because I thought, I'm making an orange cake. Vinegar, what's with the vinegar, Miss Brooks? But again, it's that science and math element. Remember that kid in elementary school who would always like do the volcano for the science project at the science fair? And it was basically just baking soda and vinegar. And when that vinegar hit that soda, it kind of, it expanded and had a little bit of a science project effect. Here goes 5 teaspoons of vinegar. Teaspoons, tablespoons. I measured it right. I just don't remember what I said. It's tablespoons. Here are 5 tablespoons of vinegar going into our mixture. And a half a cup of milk. So to this mixture, we are going to add the flour and all of the dry ingredients. So that's the flour, the salt, the baking soda, and the instructions say to creamed mixture, which is what we just made. We are going to add alternately the dry ingredients and liquids and beat well. So, here's what I should have done, but through the magic of StreamYard, you don't need to know, but it's going to be good. I promise. Promise. So here, I'm going to just blend this a little more. And we're going to start mixing in that flour in small amounts. You don't want to just dump everything in at once. You want to add it in alternately, just like the instructions say. Anyone out there baking? Hit me in the chat if you're baking. And I was here to tell you the butter and sugar and fruit rinds smell amazing. Amazing. All right, so here we go. A little bit of the flour. I wish you could see what I was doing. My initial thought was to rig the two screens so you can have the overhead view and all of that, but just bear with me. I'll kind of lift as we go and show you where we are. It's mixing quite nicely. It's a lovely color. Ta-da! So a couple more batches of the dry ingredients. Almost. Shout out to my friends at the Smart Museum of Art who are probably deep in the middle of a public practice meeting, but they are taking a break to make a little cake. Happy to know you're here. It's looking good. Maybe, just maybe, I'll bring some tomorrow. Maybe. Probably not. Sorry. And that's it. You just mix the ingredients. It's looking creamy and luscious and delicious. And I think I might even be right on schedule. All right. Nice. Were you always that kid that always wanted to, like, get your hands on these when someone was baking in the house? Yeah, this was the best part. But then we grew up and got sophisticated and learned that the raw egg thing is a no-no and you're not supposed to let kids have these. But yeah, I'm going to put these over here for later. Just saying. So this is going to go into your pans and into your preheated oven. Now the instructions say to use two 9-inch round cake pans, I have on hand a bundt pan, which I used, and it worked fine. The trick is, as the recipe says, you really want your pans to be greased well. This should be sponsored. They are not sponsoring us, but I'm here to tell you, oh my gosh, this thing right here, it is Pam's Baking with Flour Perfect Release Spray. I was in the grocery store looking for a thing, back to grandma, that my grandmother used to use called Baker's Joy. Couldn't find that. I don't know if they still make that. I don't know if Pam bought that company to make this, but oh my goodness, this thing right here, you want to take your pans, whether they are the 9.5 rounds, a baking, a bundt dish like this, or one of the 9x12 square. I think that would work well, just as well. But the key is you really want to have your surface coated really well so that it doesn't stick. So if you think that this is too much, it's just enough. So you want to completely coat it, and then you're going to pour your mixture into that beautifully coated pan, kind of evenly, so that you don't have a lopsided cake. And once you get it all in, you can just tap it on your surface to make sure everything is evened out nicely. Ah, it smells so good. And you see the little flecks of the grated lemon and orange rind inside. Look really pretty. Almost done. So we are at what time now? My time machine says it is 10:20. So here's what I learned when I did it on Sunday. The recipe says 25 minutes, says about 25 minutes. And that about is really an important thing to know, because every oven is going to be a little different. It varies whether you're using the 9-inch round pans or the single pan like I am using. All those little caveats affect your baking time. So it ended up, when I made it Sunday, took me a little longer. It was maybe ready in about 35 minutes, but we'll see what happens today. Maybe it'll be right on schedule since it's Miss Brooks's birthday. It's a holiday. And the cake knows we have an audience and that we have other things to do. So maybe it'll take 25, but we'll see. I'm just going to kind of spread this out a bit so it's nice and even. Ta-da. Going to use the orange dish towel for the orange cake batter. Look at that. Got to coordinate. So here's what I have. And I am going to put it in the oven and be right back. This wire won't go that far. Stay there. Don't go. So you can put that. So that is 10:20. So that was 10:20. We put it in. So that means what? 10:30, 10:40, 10:45-ish. We should have some cake. So while that is baking, do I have my writers here? I may not have bakers with me, but I know I have some poets or some writers in the house who are ready for a good prompt. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you the prompts that the phrases or stanzas and lines that I am excited to see how you incorporate these into a different poem. So I have 5 lines to share with you. I'm going to ask you to write these down so that you can remember them. And in honor of this being the 105th birthday celebration for Miss Gwendolyn Brooks. I have 5 lines, titles, or stanzas from 5 different poems that I'm going to ask you to incorporate into a different poem. You can incorporate them in any order. And although these are food references, your poem need not be about food. In fact, if it's not about food, even better. Give you an example. One of my favorite poems that I wrote was written from a prompt that instructed us to write about our neighborhoods as if they were genres of music. So from that, I wrote a poem called The Format Has Changed, and it was about the gentrification of Hyde Park. At the time, I was a Hyde Park resident. I was being priced out. The neighborhood was changing, and I had all of these like radio station references in the poem that had nothing to do with the radio station at all. You picking up what I'm putting down, right? Cool. All right. So the first one comes from, and everything that I'm sharing with you, I found from the anthology Blacks. So if you happen to have this handy, you can go right to it and see the full poems. So yeah, the first one is taken from a poem that's actually titled Sunday Chicken. It's on page 87 in this anthology Blacks. And the first line, title, or stanza that I'm giving you to incorporate in your own poem is Sunday Chicken. Got that? So whatever you write, however long or short it is, it should include the words Sunday chicken. Number 2, the second line that you're going to incorporate into your brand new poem comes from Miss Brooks's poem titled The Egg Boiler on page 382 in the Blacks anthology. And this time you're going to include in your poem the line, "The boiling of an egg is heavy art." Once again, that line that you're going to write into your own poem is, "The boiling of an egg is heavy art." Look at that. Oh, I love the tech, folks. Thank you. Thanks, Brooks Permissions. Yes, it's right there. Line 2. The boiling of an egg is heavy art. And that comes from the Gwendolyn Brooks poem, The Egg Boiler, on page 382 in the Blacks anthology. The third line phrase that you're going to incorporate into your own poem comes from the Brooks poem of DeWitt Williams on his way to Lincoln Cemetery. Fun fact about DeWitt Williams and Nicole Bond: for a short time, he was my visiting music teacher in elementary school. Shout out DeWitt Williams on Gwendolyn Brooks's birthday. So from that poem, we're going to use the words liquid joy. That's the third thing you're going to incorporate into your poem. Just like we incorporated all those ingredients into our cake recipe, we're incorporating all of these ingredients into our poem. Liquid joy. That's the third one. The fourth ingredient for your brand new, freshly baked poem comes from The Chicago Defender Sends a Man to Little Rock, fall 1957, Miss Brooks's poem, on page 346 in the Blacks anthology. And you are going to incorporate the line, "with lemon tea and Lorna Doones." With lemon tea and Lorna Doones. Thank you. Shout out if you like a nice Lorna Doone cookie. They're some of my favorites. Nice little shortbread. And then the fifth and last line that we are going to incorporate into our freshly baked poem comes from the Gwendolyn Brooks poem Hattie Scott on page 51 in the Blacks anthology. And the last phrase is going to be dishes done. Plain and simple. Dishes done. Best way to end any baking experience is with dishes done. All right, so we should have our 5 ingredients that we are going to incorporate into our freshly baked poem. I might even try and give it a stab myself, but I'm more interested to see what you create. So whenever you're ready, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to bake a freshly baked poem using the 5 lines and phrases from the 5 different Gwendolyn Brooks poems, and they are appearing right on our screen in case you missed something. Brooks Permissions is kindly putting them on the screen for us. The one we're looking at now is the 4th one with Lemon Tea and Lorna Doones. And then the 5th and final one is Dishes Done. So I'm going to start one more time with those again, just in case anybody's coming late to the party. Our mission that we've chosen to accept is to write a poem about anything at all using food references that were found in 5 different Gwendolyn Brooks poems from the Blacks anthology. And they are, number 1, Sunday chicken. Number 2, the boiling of an egg is heavy art. Number 3, liquid joy. Number 4, with lemon tea and Lorna Doones. And the last and final one, number 5, dishes done. So I'm excited to see what you come up with. Your time starts now. So here's where I'm gonna, I don't know, you tell me what you want to do. Poets and bakers out there, do you want to just kind of stare at me while we wait for a cake to bake? Do you want to look at that recipe in case you need to write something down? Or do we want to look at the beautiful Miss Gwendolyn Brooks with the Be Right Back graphic? Viewer's choice. I'm going to start on getting some dishes done while you all are doing that. I'll be right back. And just another word, the prompts can be in any order. Just because I gave them to you, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's not the way they should appear in your poem. They can, if that works, but don't feel that you have to use the first line first. You have to say Sunday chicken before you say lemon tea and Lorna Doones. You can work them in any order that works for you. I'm just anxious to see all 5 incorporated in your recipe. Let's see. Thank you. Yes, if you are writing along, those are the prompts. And your mission is to incorporate all 5 of them into a freshly baked poem of your own on any topic. I might have something. It smells like a cake in here, y'all. It's starting to smell really good. Let's see, where are we with time? 20. We're getting close. I'm gonna take a peek and see what the cake is looking like. Don't go away. I'll be right back. So it's looking really good, but it's gonna take a few more minutes. You know that old school baking tip? The cake is kind of done when it doesn't jiggle, when you pull it out to look and see how done it is. It's starting to get nice and brown, but still a little wiggly. That's one test. The other test, when it gets closer to being done, you kind of touch it and it springs back in the center, pretty done. And then the one I'm sure we all know, the toothpick test, right? Stick in the toothpick. If it comes out clean, chances are your cake is pretty done. This one, it's looking like it might need another 5 minutes or so. So what I'd like to do while we're waiting is to see if anybody has anything that maybe they want to share. You want to maybe put something in the chat if you're able to. There's something that you've written incorporating your 5 ingredients that you'd like to share with us. I'd love to hear them. I'll be brave, don't be shy. It's just us on Miss Gwendolyn Brooks's birthday. Can you all believe Miss Gwendolyn Brooks would have been 105 years old today? It's amazing that we have had her and her greatness and her legacy in our lives for that long. I hope we really just stop to appreciate all that means. She is an incredible force that is still always with us. If you are in Chicago, if you're not, if you like poetry, if you don't, I promise you there are some ways that Gwendolyn Brooks and her legacy have touched your life, just in the things that she's written, the activism that she is known for. I think oftentimes we tend to think of Miss Brooks as this quiet, sweet, demure little lady. And yeah, she was some of that, but she was also this amazing, powerful force that just went out into the communities and took poetry to people to really let it have a purpose in their lives, to let poetry do what poetry does, which is affect the way you look at things, to help you see broader pictures of things, to allow you to process your feelings. Those are ways that poetry works, and I think no one did it better than Miss Gwendolyn Brooks. So whether you bake a cake or write a poem or not, do celebrate this day. This is a super important day for all of us who know and love Miss Gwendolyn Brooks and her legacy. I'm looking in the chat and I do not see any poems coming in. So I'm going to tell you what I have. Tell me what you think. Wait. My life and liquid joy left my room. Okay, come on, Words and Wings. Yeah, I'll snap for that. Who else? Who else is out there? Don't be shy. So let me tell you what I was doing. I went in a different direction. I kind of thought, well, you tell me what you think I thought. I'll just tell you what I wrote. So I have, ain't no chicken like a Sunday chicken, full of liquid joy, and I'm sorry, reaching into collection plate to make change, dishing more than they take. Ladies who lunch sneer with heavy hearts broken, prim and proper, with white gloves, with wide hat, with crossed legs, with lemon tea and Lorna Doones, boiling, made yet, wait, that part when you can't read your writing, wait, okay, with lemon tea and Lorna Doones, boiling, made yet fragile, like the boiling of an egg is heavy art. We gotta work on this. See, this is why it's a workshop, because you workshop the poem. So that part's not ready. That's me just trying to get it in because that's what I asked you to do. So I can't ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do, but this part needs some work. I think I like where I'm going up to the lemon tea and Lorna Doones part. But I have boiling. Oh, mad. Okay. See, couldn't read my writing. It's boiling mad, yet fragile, like the boiling of an egg is heavy art. We only know it's over when dishes done. I'm gonna snap for that. So yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna call that, but yeah, I might call this one Sunday Chicken as well. Kind of like a spin on that Golden Shovel vibe. Kind of borrow little things from here and there, and then you make a new thing out of the existing things. So yeah, one more time, that is, ain't no chicken like a Sunday chicken, full of liquid joy, and I'm sorry, reaching in collection plate to make change, dishing more than they take. Ladies who lunch sneer with heavy hearts broken, prim and proper, with white gloves, with wide hat, with crossed legs, with lemon tea and Lorna Doone, boiling mad, yet fragile, like the boiling of an egg is heavy art. We only know it's over when dishes done. Rah, rah. I'm so silly, don't mind me, y'all. But if anybody has a title for that one, I'm open to suggestions. You can title that right now. It's untitled. Wait. All I have is Sunday Chicken. Nothing like feeling of family and art and culture and smart conversations and heavy yet hearty navigations through all the things that bring us together, that make us part of this hard-boiled solidification. The boiling of an egg is heavy art. Oh, you went deep. Okay, yes. Snap for that. Brooks Permissions. Thank you. That's good. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh, please send these. I would love to see what you've written out there. If you are out there writing along, please let us know what you came up with the 5 ingredients. If you are making the cake, please let us know how it turned out. Would super love to hear what you've created out there. And back to the cake, I will say the recipe kind of leaves us with kind of what we're doing here. The recipe kind of ends with like, write your own poem, because Miss Brooks ends the recipe by saying cool and frost. She doesn't give us any guidance into what that frosting might be or look like. She kind of leaves it up to us to create our own thing. You saw with the one that I made Sunday, I didn't frost it. I barely let it cool and just started slicing it and eating it, and it was so delicious. It was kind of reminded me of like an orangey pound cake where it really didn't need a frosting. But I thought, if we're gonna frost one today, what would that look like? So I made a little bit of an orange glaze, if you will, which is just confection sugar, the powdered sugar, with butter and more of the fruit rind. So I use more lemon and orange rind, a little bit more of the both lemon and orange juice, and I put a little squeak of vanilla extract in there. And yes, squeak, that's the technical term. That is an official measurement. A squeak of vanilla extract went into this amazing orange glaze that I may or may not put on the cooled cake from today. I'm just hoping that it finishes in time for us to kind of see it together for the big reveal, because it's looking like it's gonna need maybe like 6 or 7 more minutes or so. Yes, a squeak. That is a measurement. A squeak of vanilla extract. So what do we think? Do we think that's a lot of vanilla extract or a little bit of vanilla extract? A squeak. Just a squeak. Just a squeak. So yes. So I don't know. I'm curious. What are some of your frostings? If you were going to make this amazing cake and just follow Miss Brooks's instructions, which are to cool and frost, period. How would you frost that? You're going to do a bit of a buttercream frosting? Are you like a chocolate with orange frosting kind of vibe you're feeling? I don't know. What are some of your frosting thoughts? And I can hear somebody out there saying, Nicole, you asked me to write a poem. Now you asking me to think about frosting. Pick a side. What are you doing? So I'm gonna let you get back to that, because I know that's a huge undertaking to incorporate those 5 ingredients into a brand new poem. This is me being quiet. Be right back. No, I think she might be ready. So I'm gonna do the toothpick test. Let's see if I can hold this and not burn myself and not drop it. And yes, I do have the watermelon pot holders, because I'm about that life. So let's see. Do the toothpick. Oh, she might be done. She's nice and golden brown. So I'm gonna just pop her here on the rack shelf of my little butcher block and let her cool for a bit, and then we will turn it out and plate it. So let's give it, we're gonna go to 11:15, right? So let's do like 11:05 for her to cool, because that's like part of the secret to a really nice reveal, or to really turn the cake out easily. One, to have your pan coated really well, as you saw us do prior to putting it in the oven, but letting it take a minute to cool before you try to get it out. That's a really number one way to prevent it from sticking, I've learned. Kind of like similar to when you're preparing a cut of meat of any kind. You want to let it rest a bit before you just like dive right into it, or you will slice it immediately after it's done cooking and watch all of the juices just run right out onto the plate. And you're wondering why is the steak so dry, or why is the turkey so dry, or what? It's because you didn't let it rest. So this is the resting portion of our orange cake segment. But it smells really good here. And I wish I could share with you, but it's the internet. We're not quite there yet. So let's hear some more of these 5 ingredient poems that you've crafted for us out there. Do I have anyone who's willing to type something in the chat and share with us what you've written? Don't make me think it's like just me and Brooks permissions here, like baking this cake and writing this poem. I know you are out there. You are here with me celebrating Miss Gwendolyn Brooks's birthday. Let's hear some of those 5 ingredient poems. And again, those ingredients are Sunday chicken. The boiling of an egg is heavy art. Liquid joy. With lemon tea and Lorna Doones, and dishes done. So those are the 5 ingredients that should go into your poem of any length about any topic on this June 7th day, which is the 105th birthday celebration for the incomparable, the legendary, the Pulitzer Prize winning Miss Gwendolyn Brooks. Yay! Rah, rah. Oh, here's one. I have something in the chat. I see. What do you do with all this memory and misery? My love and liquid joy left my room. I will not follow. I will not chase. I will accept that this once love is an abandoned meal. Whoa. I see what you did there, Words and Wings. I see what you did. You did like the whole bacon and cooking vibe and like made it a heart-centered vibe. I see you. Nice. I'm here for it. Yes. What do I do with this memory and misery? My love and liquid joy left my room. I will not follow. I will not chase. I will accept that this once love is an abandoned meal. That's how you know when it's done. If you abandon a meal, you're done. It didn't say I finished the meal. It said an abandoned meal. You just were like in mid and went, you know what? I'm done. Yeah, I've had that meal. I think we've all had that meal at least once. Yeah, it's time to walk away. You must walk away. I think our poems were similar. Our poems had a similar vibe because it was in there. I'll give it again. Here's how I incorporated my 5 ingredients. I have ain't no chicken like a Sunday chicken, full of liquid joy, and I'm sorry. Reaching into the collection plate to make change, dishing more than they take. Ladies who lunch sneer with heavy hearts broken, prim and proper, with white gloves, with wide hat, with crossed legs, with lemon tea and Lorna Doones. Boiling mad, yet fragile. Like the boiling of an egg is heavy art. We only know it's over when dishes done. Yeah, that dishes done part kind of sounds like that abandoned meal. I see you. Oh, here's more. Oh, it continues. Come on now. So the boiling of an egg is heavy earth. The Sunday chicken is merely bones. The lemon tea and Lorna Doones are listless and lacking on my tongue. Wait. Okay, you're moving faster than I read. Okay, continue. No plans for the next morning's menu. My day, my devotion, and my dishes done. Oh, some Poets in the house. I'm here for it. These are really great, everybody. I appreciate it. Awesome. Are you having a good time out there? Whether you are baking the cake or writing the poem or just being in company with us on this 105th Gwendolyn Brooks Day. How you doing out there? Who's out there? That's what I want to know. Can you, if you're out there, pop something in the chat for us? Let us know you're here celebrating with us. So the cake is starting to feel like maybe I can try and plate it. I don't know, I'm a little nervous. It was one thing when I did it by myself on Sunday and came out with this. So just so you know, this is live. It's happening in real time. So if it goes sideways, just know I did do the thing and it was amazing. It was amazing. And we will have this one. If this other one kind of goes sideways. Oh, I see Kim Black is here. Hey, Kim Black. Did you write a poem that you want to share with us? We'd love to hear it. And just put a stanza in the chat or two. It's just us. So let's see. Let's see. I'm gonna try to do it. I think we might be cool enough to try and flip the cake. All right. Come on, watermelon pot holders. Let's go. You ready? Say 1, 2. Wait. All 3 of my posts made one poem. Okay, that's true. Kim says, Sally, I am not a poet. Kim, everybody is a poet. Just getting through this thing called life. Wink, wink. That's another birthday. But we'll talk about that later. Just getting through this thing called life. That is poetry in motion. Each and every one of us are poets every single day, just moving through the world. That's a poem. And if you can say any of it in words and put it on paper, even better. But if not, just doing the thing, that's poetry. I promise. All right, here we go. Take a deep breath. 1, 2. Let's see what happens. Ta-da! Come on, Pam. That Pam spray. Oh my gosh, this thing. I am gonna reach out to them and see. Hey, do you want to sponsor some baking events? Because it no stick, no. We did it, y'all. Oh my gosh, it smells amazing. This is incredible. Yes, woo for that. That we did it. We did the Gwendolyn Brooks orange cake on Gwendolyn Brooks's 105th birthday here in the undisclosed location, Gwendolyn Brooks Bakery and Cakery situation here with the fine folks from Brooks Permissions. This is amazing. So, should I, what do you think? Let's take a vote. Should we just leave it unglazed like the other one, or should we try for a little bit of the glaze? You tell me. I'm good either way, because I'm going to eat the thing. Glazed, unglazed. Show of hands. We feeling glaze or no glaze? I'm going to leave it up to you. Talk to me. Talk to me. Glaze it. Kim says glaze it. All right, Kim. I'm going to glaze it. So, I want you to see if you can see that. I'm trying to hold it up. And I am going to, let's see. This is going to be a mess. Oh. But it's pretty. It's a pretty mess. Nice. So again, this is confectioner's sugar and butter and lemon and orange rind. So I grate it like the skin of a lemon and about half a lemon and the whole orange, and beat it really well. And that will give you a frosting. And what I did was take that frosting and just kind of melt it down in a pan on a low heat to get this really cool looking glaze. I can't wait. So I am going to give us a little slice. Gonna do a little bit of a candle situation because this is a birthday celebration. But what we're not gonna do, I guess we could, seeing that there's really no audio, it's just me. I don't know if we, no, I was gonna say maybe we'll do a little sing of the birthday, but because here's what happens. One, over this kind of format, usually when you can hear everybody, it just doesn't sync well. So the singing usually kind of sounds kind of sad. And then I know when there are a lot of Black people in the room, we're never sure if we're doing like the traditional happy birthday or we're doing the Stevie Wonder happy birthday. And it kind of just gets lost in the translation. So what we're going to do, what I'm going to do, slice, nice, beautiful slice. This, oh, can you see? I don't know if can you see like the steam rising out of it? I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's like piping hot right out of the oven. And let's look at that. Oh, see more steam rising. It's you see the steam, right? It's like piping hot. I'm gonna put a little bit more glaze here. And then as we're getting to our final moments of our time together, what I'm going to do, just because it's just what I like to do, I'm going to take the orange candle, put the orange candle into the orange cake. I'm going to light said orange candle. And I'm going to just let us have a moment to just make a wish on this holiday, if you will, where anything is possible. Holidays have that kind of special, I think, enchanted vibe to them where, you know, you just get excited and you're ready to celebrate. And with birthdays, that was the whole point of that whole making the wish thing, as you know, it's a special day and anything is possible. So I am just going to light this candle and let each and every one of you just take an opportunity to take a moment to think of Ms. Brooks on what would have been her 105th birthday, to think of all the goodness and every good thing that is in your life and the lives of those that you love and care about. Make a wish for all of the things you wish to see in the world, the things that maybe you wrote about in your poems. If there is anything that poetry can do, it can definitely inspire us. It can kind of touch the way we think. It can say with emotions and feelings things that we can't always say with words. So use this time and this moment to just make a wish on some of those things on this very special day. I'm gonna just let this be here while we wrap up our time together. We have a few more minutes to be in company, and I want to open up the space for anyone who hasn't shared, who is interested in sharing something that they wrote using the 5 ingredients. If anyone was baking along with me, if you want to type in the chat and let us know how'd your cake turn out. Is it as good as this one? You know what? Actually, it looks good. It you would think it's good, but I didn't taste it. So, excuse me for just 1 minute while I take care of that. Let's see what we did. Let's see. This one, wait. This one's better than the first one. I don't know why. I guess because today's a holiday. Today's the actual birthday cake. This is the birthday cake. That was like the test cake. Let's see. Let's do a comparison. So this was Sunday's cake. Yeah, it's good. But like, this is the birthday cake today with the glaze and the company, made with all of you, made in real time. The pressure. But it came out really, really well. It's good. This is good. Please make this cake. If you didn't make it with us today, please make it. Darius, if I could trouble you to put the recipe up again for anyone who needs that. It's super easy to make. You see, we made it in real time in a virtual environment. So certainly you can make it at home in the privacy of your own kitchen with all of the things right at your disposal and no audience. It's super, super easy to do. Just follow the instructions. Do everything that it says. Just don't like take all the ingredients and just dump them in and go, oh, I'm making a cake. No, if it's asking you to like put in the egg separately, put in the egg separately. If it's asking you to beat the butter and the sugar and the fruit rinds and then do something else, if you follow the instructions, you will get this amazing, rich, delicious, buttery, orangey, delicious cake. So yeah. The recipe will be available on all your social media outlets. Good to know. And we are in the final 5 minutes of our time together. So I'm going to turn it back to you to continue working on your poem. If there's something you have that you'd like to share and put in the chat, we'd love to read it. You just kind of want to sit with this flame in celebration of Miss Gwendolyn Brooks. That's pretty good too. So the trick is, how can I like break up another piece without tipping the candle over? And if you notice, it's a new thing I'm trying to start doing, and it's just pandemic related. I think we all agree the days are over for like blowing all over somebody's cake. I'm here for candles. I love a good candle, but I kind of like now kind of just to let it burn. I don't need you to blow on the cake. That's just me. Maybe I could have saved that part, but just saying. Oh, good. That's really good. This is good. How can we find you on social media? I'm not on social media. I'm afraid of social media. I'm out there. Kind of hard to find. I kind of like to float under the radar, you know. But wherever there are poems being written or read, stick around long enough, I promise you, I'll show up. You'll turn around and you're like, oh, she was here the whole time. Yep. Kind of stealthy that way. This is so good. Oh my gosh. Please make this cake, folks. If you haven't already, make this cake. And do stick around for the full day. We have an amazing program all day. It just doesn't stop with cake and poems. Up next at noon, we're going to have a pack of poets. Some of the most amazing poets that you've heard are going to just kind of share some of their reflections on Miss Brooks. Some of the folks I know who will be there, Pulitzer Prize winning and Gwendolyn Brooks open mic winning poet Taimba Jess, Professor Eve Ewing, poet and author Nate Marshall, and many, many, many more are going to be up next as this program continues. So do stay with us all day. This is a full day of celebratory events and offerings to acknowledge the life and legacy of our very own Miss Gwendolyn Brooks. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I'll see you next time. Yes, she did eat that cake while the candle was burning the whole time. Yep, sure did. Yep. Yes, I did. See you.
Welcome back to Brooks Permissions, honor of Gwendolyn Brooks' 105th birthday. The next birthday gift to
Good afternoon, folks. Apologies for all of the technical difficulties, but we're going to get this thing back on track. We were in the middle of a reading, a beautiful reading of a piece by Gwendolyn Brooks entitled Song or I'm sorry, an excerpt of a piece of Gwendolyn Brooks entitled Song of Winnie Mandela. And this excerpt reads, my poem is life and not finished. It should never be finished. My poem is life and can grow. Wherever life can grow, it will. It will sprout out and do the best it can. I give you what I have. You don't get all your questions answered in this world. How many answers shall be found in the developing world of my poem? I don't know. Nevertheless, I put my poem, which is life, into your hands where it will do the best it can. And now we'll toss it over to our president, Nora Brooks Blakely.
And be part of the 105th actual birthday anniversary. And I'm so glad for our audience, and I'm so glad to all the absolutely incredible, awesome people who are here to share and to chat uh, about their work and the work of Gwendolyn Brooks and how that all comes together today. Just for those of you who don't know, Brooks for Missions has been going on for 20 years. We license the copyright protected literary works of my mother, Gwendolyn Brooks. We have reviewed and approved requests from artists, publishers, musicians, all kinds of people, textbook creators, all kinds of people who want to use my mother's work in the things that they do. We've had her work approved to be on a museum wall and all kinds of other creative things. And produce we also produce our own materials. So one of them is Seasons, which we brought out for the centennial in 2017. We brought that out, and it's a collection, not only a themed collection of her work, but also comments from mentors, from mentees and peers and family, and all of that. So we celebrate every year her birthday, as do other organizations. And so we're so proud this year to have Gwendolyn Brooks Center at Chicago State, who did a presentation earlier this morning. And if you missed that, I'm sorry, because she baked an orange cake, a recipe of my mother's. That was Nicole Bond, as well as did a writing prompt from using some of my mother's work. So that was awesome. And and so later on, we've got other great stuff going on, and there'll also be. I'll let other people tell you about that. So, what I want to do right now is to pass the torch to our fabulous moderator, who can tell you a little bit about herself and the others who are part of this incredible panel. And you'll also be able to check their bios in our website later on today. So, let me introduce from the Poetry Fountain, the fabulous Ydalmi Noriega.
Nora, thank you so much for hosting all of us today and for working so hard with the team at Brooks Permissions to make another full day of celebrations in honor of Gwendolyn Brooks, a poet that has meant so much to so many of us. People who care about poetry, people in Chicago, and people who have found meaning and guidance and sustenance in her poems. So it's a great honor to be here with all of you today. And especially it's a great honor to moderate a panel with 5 amazing poets, all of whom I know feel very deeply for Gwendolyn Brooks. Like Nora said, everyone's bios have been shared, and I really would love to go straight into a conversation with these amazing poets so that we can hear about what Gwendolyn Brooks has meant to each of them. But I did want to share the names of all the poets we'll be in conversation with today with you. Of course, we have Carolyn Aguila, Eve L. Ewing, Angela Jackson, who is the current Poet Laureate of the state of Illinois, a position that we know Miss Brooks held for more than 30 years. Tahimba Jess is our next poet, and then, of course, Nate Marshall. So welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in from across the country and for joining us to celebrate Miss Brooks today. And Carolyn, I would love to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about the first moment you remember encountering Miss Brooks' poetry, or perhaps even her in person, and what that experience was like, and what it means to you to this day to have that connection?
Thank you. Well, I've thought about this a lot because in so many ways I feel like Gwen has always been there in my professional life. And while I'm sure, I can't verify the exact date, but while I'm sure that I encountered her poetry probably in late high school and college, it was really when I started as an intern at the Department of Cultural Affairs at the Chicago Cultural Center that I really began not only to engage with her work, but to really understand the depth of her importance in Chicago's literary life and way beyond that. And meeting her in person the first time, again, I can't verify the exact date, but I am sure it happened at a reading at the Cultural Center. You should know that my mentor, Sandy Royster, who's deceased, was the program director at the Cultural Center. And we did all of the programming there for performing and literary arts. And Sandy, as she was coming up, she was also a published poet. She too was part of the Organization for Black American Culture, of which Gwendolyn had a lot of connection to. So I see this as a rolling loop of how Gwendolyn's significance as a writer is transferred human to human in much the same way I liken it to a ballet master who is teaching a choreography, and it has to be human to human connection for that to be perfected. So that's how I think of Gwen.
Carolyn, thank you so much for that reflection. I'm struck by this idea of loop and this idea of connection human to human, because I think it's how many people experience Gwendolyn Brooks, whether they had the chance to know her in person or know her through her work. And I'd love to hear from Miss Jackson, because probably of the folks on this call, you are the person who had a longest connection with her, and then are now holding this Illinois Poet Laureate post. And I'm very curious to see how your relationship first emerged with Miss Brooks and how that developed through the years.
I didn't quite hear that. Could you type it in for me, what you said?
Yes, I will do that right now. And I wonder, as I type this to Miss Jackson, Eve, if you can speak to that too, right? The moment when you first remember encountering Miss Brooks and how your relationship with her and her work has grown from then.
Sure. And I am speedy fingers, so I just typed the question as well, and looking forward to hearing the great Angela Jackson and others respond. And I want to say thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Ydalmi, for moderating, and thank you to everyone at Brooks Permissions for organizing this special day. Like countless school children through the generations at this point, my first encounter with Miss Brooks was through the Pool Players 7 at the Golden Shovel, We Real Cool. And I probably encountered that poem for the first time when I was 8 or 9 years old in school. And the thing about that is that was cemented in my head as the quintessential Brooks poem, which, you know, we now know, or I now know that, you know, she teased a little bit about that and said, I wish the textbook compilers and the anthologists would know that I wrote some other poems too. But it left such an imprint on me. And then when I was in college, I took a class called Black Women Writers of the 40s and 50s with a professor named Jackie Goldsby. And she was my first Black woman professor, and I was so excited to be in her class. And she had us read lots and lots of excerpts from Blacks, the kind of definitive compendium of Brooks poetry. And I remember reading Annie Allen for the first time and reading the Aeneid. And for those who haven't read the poem, it's obviously a riff off Virgil's The Aeneid, but it's spelled Anniad, as so kind of playing with the name Annie. And I read that poem, and I was 19 and 20 years old, and I read it, and I got to the end, and I said, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever read in my life, and I have no idea what it's about. I don't get it at all. And I became obsessed, and I thought, if I can go to my class today and walk out understanding this poem, I will be a different person. I will be a better person. And it kind of set me on the path for what it meant to kind of live a literary life. And it's so representative because it shows the breadth and the depth and the complication of Miss Brooks' work over such a long and storied career, that there, you know, is a poem that I could read as an 8-year-old and be like, I get this. And then poems that I could read a decade later that I'm like, wow, there's so much for me to unpack. And I feel like I'm still on that journey of unpacking. And through her work, that's also how, I mean, I'll probably talk about this more later in our conversation, but as I got to understand her legacy more, it also shaped my idea of what it means to be a writer in society, to be a writer in culture, to be a writer as a member of a community. And that is one of the most important lessons that I've taken away from her legacy.
Eve, thank you so much. And I wonder if we can hear from Poet Laureate of the state of Illinois, Angela Jackson.
I was looking over to the side, so I didn't hear what you said. Would you repeat it?
Yes. I was wondering if you can tell us about the first time you met Miss Brooks and how your relationship developed through the years.
Okay. The first time I met Miss Brooks, I didn't meet her. The first time I saw her was in 1966 when I was in high school. There was a video on her that she did, and I saw it in my English class, and I was so astonished by this woman who was a Chicagoan like me, who wrote poems like me, who lived on the South Side like me. So I saw a possibility. She made an impression on me that was so deep. I was writing poems at the time, but I didn't think about being a poet. It was not until Hoyt Fuller was a visiting professor at Northwestern and invited me to Obasi that I really engaged Gwendolyn Brooks. And I don't remember the first time I saw her up close, but I think it was at Obasi at 77 East 35th Street. She was so accessible to me as the queen mother of Obasi that she made an impression on me, and I delved deeply into her work. I remember the first book of hers that I read was In the Mecca. And after that, I was a devotee of Gwendolyn Brooks. And I was so devoted to her that I think I became myself because I learned from her how to observe not just the words, but the life of African American people, who she would call Black people. So my devotion to her set me apart from, I think, a lot of the writing that was going on in that day and at that time of the other Black arts poets of my age. Um, it was through her that I found myself. Of course, I didn't meet her personally until later because I thought of her as Nora's mama. Nora was in Obasi, and Nora and I were running buddies. We would stop by the house, and Miss Brooks would give us money for the movies, and we would go off to see the movies, and yeah, and I called her Nora's mama. So before I called her Miss Brooks, she was like two separate entities: Nora's mama and the great Gwendolyn Brooks.
I love that so much because that is, as a person, I never had the chance, the honor to meet Miss Brooks in person, and I came to Chicago in 2002, of course, knowing her poetry and loving it. But it is astounding to me the number of people in Chicago who have personal connections to Miss Brooks and think of her as this cool lady that's a poet that came to my classroom, or this person who gave me money on my street because I carried her groceries into her house, or like you said, Miss Jackson, Nora's mom. And I think it's incredible that she holds this space in our city as a beloved figure, both as like the great, amazing poet and also this very warm and engaged citizen of this city. Tahimba, I would love to hear from you a little bit about that first encounter, and also through the years how your relationship with Miss Brooks grew.
Well, first off, it's an honor to be a part of this panel with these esteemed poets, and it's always a good day to celebrate Gwendolyn Brooks. I believe that my first encounter with Miss Brooks was through the word, of course. I would echo that, of course, her most famous poem, "We Real Cool," was, one of the greatest hits played in elementary school, so to speak, when I was a kid in Detroit. That's how I first met her work. Then I moved to Chicago in about 1984. I eventually believe that I met her. I think I first saw her read perhaps at University of Chicago, but I think that the first time I really had any real interaction with her was at one interesting thing about Ms. Brooks was that she was kind of a poetry angel of Chicago, and she was notorious for going around and doing little kind of miniature poetry contests. From my understanding, she would sometimes be in a school somewhere and do a little mini contest or whatever. This was around the mid 90s, I want to say 94, 95 or so, that I was at the Chicago Black Writers Conference at Chicago State University. And they had an impromptu little poetry slam, and I slammed a poem, and I actually won $100 from Ms. Brooks. Evidence of her great generosity. Definitely helped pay the rent at the time. I was very thankful. I was also very, very honored to meet Ms. Brooks, whose lyrical prowess and her eye for the heart and soul of Chicago was so penetrating and so very specific and very wide at the same time. She's reading her work has always been a real lesson in how to capture the voice of a people, the spirit of a people, and I think in the way that she lived her life, in the way that she was so generous towards so many people, in the way of giving of her time, giving of her consideration and respect for organizations like Obasi, and kind of the kind of interchange she had between generations, in that allowed her to grow and to learn from and to teach, the folks in Obasi and of that generation. It's a real lesson for me in terms of generosity, in terms of giving and openness, and in terms of productivity. So I guess Gwendolyn Brooks has been such a model in so many different ways. It's just it's really amazing to see the kind of furious flowering of Black poets and Black poetry that has come after her legacy.
Tahima, thank you so much. There's so much there that I would like to come back to in this conversation about the model that she is for so many writers. And Eve already alluded to a little bit about that. But Nate, I'd love to hear from you about, you were a person who grew up as a poet in Chicago as a young person. All of those things were true simultaneously. While Miss Brooks was with us for a good portion of that, can you tell us a little bit about how you encountered her and where, and how your relationship with her and her work has changed through the years?
For sure. First off, hello everyone. I'm really glad to be here, and much appreciations to the organizers and to Ydalmi for hosting, and to my fellow poets. I think for me, it was probably sort of similar to like what Eve and Tyemba described, in the sense that I first came to see the work in school, in the school space. Certainly We Real Cool, the Bean Eaters, etc. And I don't know that it was like, I think probably at that point I was just sort of thinking about it in the context of like, this is what we're doing today in English class, right? So cool, what have you. I think the first moment where it really, where I think the work really like grabbed hold of me in a different kind of way was when I saw the poem Beverly Hills, Chicago. And the reason why was because, so I grew up sort of on the far South side. And when I went to school in the neighborhood in Beverly, and then also the neighborhood Mount Greenwood. And so I was bused to school, and like my school bus route would go through that neighborhood. Right. And so it was the first time I had ever had a couple experiences. One, it was the first time I ever saw a poem that was about a place that I had literally been, like physically. And that struck me. It was, sort of like flipped a light switch. I was like, oh, you can write poems just about like stuff that you have done, like, and not just like you but like specifically like, oh, like a sort of random kid, Black kid on the South side. You can write poems about like the kind of experience that sort of person might encounter. That's interesting. And then like, that poem talks, I think, about a certain kind of like alienation, or like a certain kind of like class thing, right? And that was my experience every day, like going from, from the bus, like, from my neighborhood of West Pullman into these like more affluent neighborhoods just sort of to the west of us, right? And so the poem just made me feel legible in this way. And that was really the point at which I was like, okay, yeah, this person is like important, and this is a poet that I want to be paying attention to, and like having a sense of what, I just want to know more. Yeah, and so then from there, I think I got like one of the selecteds, and the work has really been kind of a watchword for me. In fact, so my grandmother was a librarian in the high schools in Chicago for many years on the South and West Side, and she had these kind of like posters that she hung up in like her classrooms or libraries. One of Gwendolyn Brooks and one of Langston Hughes, and I still like have those hung up at home in my office. So, very much still, like a thing that me and Eve sort of, I was gonna say jokingly, but it's actually like not really a joke. A thing that I think we've said to each other over the years is like, what would Gwendolyn Brooks do, right, when confronted with any number of like personal or professional quandaries? Just like, well, what would Miss Brooks do? Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nate. WWGBD. That's the new thing we're all going to start saying. Miss Jackson, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about taking on the role of Illinois Poet Laureate and thinking of a poet that serves the state, and how you think of that work after it was done and molded for 3 decades by Miss Brooks.
Taking on the role of Poet Laureate and what was the other part?
Especially after the model that Miss Brooks provided for that work.
Especially after the model of Gwendolyn Brooks. Of course. Who else would I have modeled myself after? That was my intention, to model myself after Ms. Brooks. I just had 2 words, excellence and generosity, to try to what Nate was talking about and Diane, but her generosity and her excellence. And also the other thing she did was she embraced the whole state. I mean, she embraced young people in particular, and she embraced all young people. And that is what I made it my intention to do. One way in which I had planned to do it, and I think it's working, was create a program called Ambassadors of Poetry and select 4 different poets from around the state. As it turned out, I only got 1 Euro-American poet from downstate. That's Whitney Jones, and she was very effective. And I got 1 Latino poet and 2 African American poets from the Chicagoland area. In particular, too, I still think I'm following her footsteps in that, because she wanted to bring poetry to young people who people did not see as poets. Traditionally, poetry has been considered the art form of the elite. Well, she brought it to the people. She saw it. She saw a source of creativity, and she said this in her video. She saw poverty as a source of creativity, and as a subject for creativity. And I wanted to do that with the Ambassadors of Poetry, and I think I have. I've also done quite a few readings on my own, not nearly as many as she did. When I was working on her biography, I found out how much Miss Brooks was on the road. She was on a traveling train from September through June, almost continuously, an exhausting schedule. But she did it, and she gave of herself, and she, after each reading, she would talk to people and sign their books for an hour or more until the last person's book had been signed. I don't think I have that kind of stamina to give, but I try to be the kind of giver that she was. So I had a good example. As far as excellence, well, Gwendolyn Brooks is Gwendolyn Brooks. I'm like, I do the best that I can, but I'm not Gwendolyn Brooks. All I can do is be the best that I can.
And we're so honored that you are our poet laureate. Excellence and generosity. You brought it down for 2 words, to 2 words. And yes, I think that all of you on this call, I think that through your work, both on the page, on the stage, and teaching and in cultural organizing, bring that spirit, and Ms. Brooks serves as a model. And I have a question that I hope that both Eve and Nate can kind of answer jointly or together, because I know that so much of the work that you do across your lives is molded on Miss Brooks's kind of legacy in Chicago. And I wonder if you can say more. Eve, you mentioned a little bit ago that she taught you a lot of what it means to be a writer in the world. If you can say more about that, and then Nate, if you can take it from there after Eve speaks.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I mean, part of why it's such an honor to be on this panel is because I am continually learning from the legacy of Miss Brooks, as not only she left us, but as it is lived and embodied by the other folks that are in community with us here today. And so, you know, I just like to be grateful and give people their flowers when I get a chance. And so thank you to all of you. But, you know, I think that the phrase that I often find myself going back to is a poet in the world. And Gwendolyn Brooks was a poet in the world. As Miss Jackson brought up, there's often this very elitist image of what a poet is. I remember I had an opportunity to visit Key West, and I went to one of Ernest Hemingway's many homes. And in Ernest Hemingway's home, there was a special little attic studio area. And on the tour, they tell you, oh, every morning he went up at 6 a.m. and he sat in this special little attic studio, and somebody brought him a tray of food and left it outside the door. And that's the image a lot of people have, that a writer like goes up into a room and you kind of think your thoughts, and genius and inspiration strikes you. And there's so much about racism and sexism and classism that is embedded in those kinds of assumptions. And what Gwendolyn Brooks gave us was the opposite model, that a poet is somebody who is moving through space in community, in conversation with other people. That is exemplified even in the title, A Street in Bronzeville, right? Which calls us right away to look out our own window and to think, well, what is the street in the place where I am, or the rural country road, right? Wherever, or the suburban cul-de-sac. That idea that Nate pointed out, that you can just write poems about your life and the people around you. But not only that, as Taimba and others have mentioned, that you show up and you give the things that you were able to give to materially support that structure of other people being able to tell their stories. And so for me, her legacy is, number one, trying to write about everyday people and everyday things insofar as I can. But number two, trying to show up and, you know, move chairs, set up mics, bring food for people, carry stuff, you know, throw a coin or two behind a competition or a community you know, organized event. And that is something I'm very proud of, and very grateful for the work that Nate and I, and very much also Ydalmi, who's not going to shout herself out here, but that we've been able to do in that arena. I feel like that is, you know, if I want to leave something behind, that is as important, if not more important to me than the poems that I write. But that to me is also part of being a poet in the model of Brooks.
Yeah, no, very much so. And you know, a thing that I'm just sort of thinking about, to kind of add to what Eve was talking about, is that So this past year I had an opportunity to teach a class on Miss Brooks to my undergraduates at Colorado College, and it was, it was really interesting and like really moving. And we read Miss Jackson's biography, and one of the parts of that book that I think I'm most struck by is that last chapter, right? Which in many ways, like, is all about sort of what comes after Miss Brooks, right? So it's largely like former students or younger poets or whomever, cultural organizers, etc., just thinking about or talking about the impact of Miss Brooks, right? Whether that impact be personal, whether that impact be via the work, whether that impact be sort of handed down through, relationships that bore relationships that bore relationships. And yeah, I think that's a thing that for me that like, that's really important to me, right? And that I think in so many ways, right, like runs counter to our ideas, like what Eve was saying about what it means to be a sort of great artist or a great writer. That yeah, part of what that means is having like not only a sort of expansive vision of the work, but also a generous vision of how you move in the world, right, and how you move in your community. So that for me is like the thing that I'm always sort of trying to think about or trying to approach in the sort of like small and insufficient ways that I do in all my practices, right? In teaching and writing, in sort of putting together events, all those things.
Thank you, Nate. And I actually want to shout out that biography of Miss Brooks by Miss Jackson that you just mentioned, A Surprised Queenhood in the New Black Sun, The Life and Legacy of Gwendolyn Brooks. Please go get a copy, read this book. It's so great. Dahimba, I wonder if you can speak a little bit to kind of the national legacy of Miss Brooks, right? And how poets, but also readers are still encountering her work outside of Chicago, which I think is there's a difference between kind of like the deep personal connection that people in this city feel to her and how others in other parts of the country feel, where they understand her legacy as being of excellence and generosity, but perhaps there's a distance there that doesn't exist in Chicago.
I think that when you're talking about Gwendolyn Brooks, you're talking about the first Pulitzer Prize winning Black poet. So you're talking about prototype right there. And I think that the thing about Ms. Brooks' writing is that we're still learning from it today, and that the timelessness of her poetry still resonates from the first half of the 20th century, and now we're into the first half of the 21st century. So I think that what I still learn, I can tell you from a personal viewpoint, is that what I still learn, for one, is like her. This may sound, I guess, I don't know how this is going to sound, but the way she uses rhyme, for instance, the way she's able to lace rhyme into the poem and still have the poem maintain its unique integrity, and still bring a kind of resonance that goes through from era to era to era, and is able to cling without cloying. Look at a poem like The Mother, right? And look at the line structure in that poem, and look at the internal rhyme in that poem. Those are still lessons that I'm still learning from today, and I think that other poets are also learning from. Not to mention the level of fearlessness in a poem like The Mother, which was just to take it topically for 1 second, was written before Roe versus Wade, and now is more relevant than ever, right? And in its in the way it addresses motherhood and abortion, right? What you're talking about is the ability to address the historical topics, current topics, the issues of race, issues of gender, and to have them resonate in a body of work that extends over decades and do what poets want to do, which is to be heard beyond your lifetime and to resonate beyond that lifetime. I would also add on this other thing, and that is that part of her legacy lives structurally. In other words, let's say her engagement with organizations like Obasi, right, still resonates today. In that there are organizations like Furious Flower, started by Joanne Gabbins, which was really supposed to happen with her at Furious Flower, right? She was supposed to present at Furious Flower, and that didn't happen. But organizations like that still exist today. Furious Flower, Kaveh Khanum, I would say the Watering Hole, Callaloo was doing it for a minute. All these different kinds of levels of people of organizations that were sustained. Let me put it like this: her engagement with literary organizing, okay, in the 60s and through the 70s, particularly, like, set a framework for the kind of engagement and community organizing and literary organizing that is happening today.
Thank you so much. I'm kind of adding to my list of words, right? There was excellence and generosity, but I think that there's also stamina. There's also engagement. And I also think there's a fearlessness in how we still kind of live and think about Miss Brooks, because she was a path maker in all the ways that you described, Timba, including her move to say, I am this popular poet, and I am going to go support Black presses. And I think there's so much in that decision that still resonates today. And we've seen kind of a reflowering, a furious flowering, especially of Black poets. And so much of that was made possible by the work she did 60, 50, 40, 30 years ago. So I really appreciate you bringing that into this conversation. We're almost at time. And Carolyn, I wonder if you can kind of talk to us about how you and the work that you're doing are living and experiencing the legacy of Miss Brooks in Chicago today.
Yeah, I really want to express my gratitude to all of you. And of course, the organizers behind this event, because it not only brings back really fond memories of my work with Gwen. Some of you may know that in the last years of her life, I was her speaking agent. And obviously, we had many conversations. We had many, many times where we could personally connect. And Tahimba, one of the things that you said about the timelessness of her work, it's just ageless. She brings you into a place, she brings you into a life, she makes you look at the details of life and forces you more than thinking, but forces you to feel. And as someone who has worked with many artists from a broad scope of disciplines and genre, she is really the gold standard of anybody that I've ever worked with. Maybe, and I say that really without reservation. We've talked about her generosity. We've talked about her excellence, which is, revered by so many. But there was a constant dignity that she had, and it was so warm. She was such a warm person. And it really, I think, melted the public's heart at how giving she was, even in her public readings. So I guess when you ask me this question about how does this evidence itself in my own work, or my own thoughts about artistry, that is how it is evident. It is, am I, currently I'm working for an arts organization here in town in Chicago, and I bring that ethic of, are we being of service? Are we being of use to the community? And that is a huge lesson that she passed on. And not just that she said, Carolyn, this is a great way to live. She lived it, and I saw it by example. And I'm, like I say, I'm very grateful to be able to listen to everybody's memories and how they have, how Gwendolyn's work and her life have just uplifted us all. And also knowing, of course, I'm not the only person that experienced that, but there's this whole group of people all across the planet who have been so very touched by also just the generosity she had as an artist, because she so much told the truth. And we all know as writers, it's hard to tell the truth. It can be physically hard to get down to the grit of what we want to really say. And it can be frightening. And you look at the body of her work, and she truly was fearless. I guess that's the best way that I can answer that question.
Thank you so much for that sentiment. I think that's a great way for us to wrap this conversation. I want to encourage all of our viewers to go out and seek the work of these poets. All of them are living very actively into the legacy of Gwendolyn Brooks, starting with Ewing and Nate Marshall's work with Crescendo Literary, and of course, Tahima Jess also being a poet who has won the Pulitzer Prize, and Miss Jackson being our state poet laureate, and of course, Carolyn, all the continued work you're doing with organizing and with your poetry. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I am going to turn the mic back over to Nora, and happy Brooks Day, everyone.
Good morning. This is Albert Lloyd calling for some few walls. I want to follow.
Nora, you're muted.
Sorry. With all the people that accidentally say things on mic, I'd rather find out that I had been talking and and the mic was off than to find out that I'd been talking and the mic was on. But I am. I'm going to kick this back over to Cynthia in just a second. I was saying, but I first want to say I am a firm believer in the shameless plug. And in honor of everything that you have also wonderfully described about the different areas that that Mama made her mark in, I want to flip back and give everybody up to 30 seconds to pitch something that they are doing right now, whether it is an organization that they want to celebrate, a particular book that you have out or is coming out. I want to give everybody 30 seconds. Can we do? Yeah, we got enough time to do that. 20 to 30 seconds to make that pitch, and go.
I'm happy to go because I know what I'll say, and it's very much in the legacy of Miss Brooks. Many people on this call are working with Jerima Gorman of Burst Into Books for an amazing literary festival on July 30th, the World of Wonders Literary Festival for the whole family. The featured poet that day will be the featured writer will be Jacqueline Woodson, but there will be many other writers, lots of activities for the whole family, and it will happen at Gately Stadium, again, July 30th. Please come out, support this amazing first edition of a literary festival that many of us on this call hope will happen for a long, long time.
I'll hop in, co-sign, very proud to be a co-organizer of that festival. My most recent book that just came out last year is called Maya and the Robot, and it is about a Black girl whose best friend is a robot. I'm really proud of it. It's a book for young readers, roughly 7 to 10 years old, but any age. And my next book that's coming out is called Change the Game, and it is a graphic novel that I co-wrote with Colin Kaepernick. It is a young adult graphic novel about his experience as a high school student, and you can pre-order that now from Scholastic. Change the Game, co-written by myself and Colin Kaepernick.
I will. I'll contribute for a half a second. This Juneteenth is the second year that an organization or a coalition of organizations called Getting Word will be raising money for Black literary organizations. Cave Canem, Furious Flower, Hurston Wright Foundation, Obsidian Literary Magazine, and the Watering Hole, 5 organizations that have fostered Black authors for a combined 130 years, have now formed a coalition called Getting Word. I put the link in the chat box there, and it is an effort to raise money for Black literary organizations. As a matter of fact, this year we will be having also a sponsor through Bookshop, and we'll have a list of 50 books on Bookshop. And if you buy Black authors, so the idea is for Juneteenth to start the tradition of buying Black authors, buying Black literature, supporting Black literary organizations and Black authors. So happy Juneteenth.
Well, I'll be happy to plug the organization that I'm working for, Second Story, here in town. It is in the Albany Park neighborhood where I grew up. Second Story is a collective of artists that tell real lived first person narrative stories. So please check it out at secondstory.com.
Yeah. And then I guess just very quickly, I don't have a lot to promote because I'm a lot of life stuff is happening. So, but I guess one thing, a podcast that I really love and have been a fan of for some years, The Slowdown. If you're not subscribed to that, and take a listen, and I believe towards the end of the summer I'll be guest hosting for a couple of episodes of that. So that'll be fun. So yeah, get in tune with that.
Angela? Okay. Angelo, I'm asking you, you want to push? There we go.
Her book, more than meat and raiment.
Yeah. And so, Angela, your mic is off. So while you're turning your mic on, then I'll do a pitch. Last year, my first picture book came out, and I thought I had it down here with me, and I don't see it. There it is. My first picture book came out, and it is Moyenda and the Golden Heart. And the paperback came out last year, and the hardcover, hooray, is coming out this year. And so I hope everybody gets a chance to check that out. Angela, is your mic up? Okay. All right. Cynthia, you have something you should plug.
We're doing 1619 The Journey at the Vidum Theater. So please check it out.
And if everybody sends this to all of these things to info@gwendolynbrooks.net, then we will post them. I'm jumping ahead. I didn't mention this to Darius, but we will post them on Brooks Permissions on Facebook so that everybody can check out these things and really do one of the things that Mama liked to do, which was to crossbreed to get people involved in so many different kinds of things and to let people know when she would drag poets up on the stage with her to read and everything so people could hear other writers. So yeah, I just want to say that. And Sin, you were gonna say a little something something.
Well, on the behalf of Brooks Permissions, we'd like to send a special thank you to all of you. And it was a gift to Gwen to have you here to share your love, your expressions of love, and your respect for Gwen. And thank you again.
So Darius, did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh, I didn't know I was on. Sure. It is this the plug? You want me to continue plugging? Is that what's happening?
A plug. Are we doing We Real Cool or
Oh, yes, absolutely. Sorry. Well, in the spirit of plugging, everybody, please make sure that you also follow BAM Talent, Black Art Matters Talent. We are a Midwest theatrical organization based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. But a lot of the members are members and folks from the Chicagoland area. So please support Black excellence. We are doing it for the people, not just for the show. BAMTalent.org. So we have this amazing video that we want to share with you guys. A lot of you know it. If you are truly a fan of Gwendolyn Brooks, then you know this video. It is the classic sharing of We Real Cool and the very beautiful story that she always told before it. So take a listen right now.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'd better offer you We Real Cool. Most young people know me only by that. I don't mean that I dislike it, but I would prefer it if the textbook compilers and the anthologists would assume that I've written a few other poems. I wrote it because I was passing by a pool hall in my community one afternoon during school time, and I saw therein a little bunch of boys, I say here in this poem, 7, and they were shooting pool. But instead of asking myself, why aren't they in school? I asked myself, I wonder how they feel about themselves. And just perhaps they might have considered themselves contemptuous of the establishment, or at least they wanted to feel that they were contemptuous of the establishment, might want to thumb their noses at the establishment, and I represented the establishment with the month of June, which is a nice, gentle, non-controversial, enjoyable, pleasant, fragrant month that everybody loves. This poem has been banned here and there because of the word jazz, which some people have considered a sexual reference. That was not my intention, though I have no objection if it helps anybody. But I was thinking of music. The pool players, 7 at the Golden Shovel. We real cool, we left school, we learn late, we strike straight, we sing, sin, we then gin, we jazz June, we die soon. I'm going to read you 3 more poems.